Rebecca Kacaba, CEO of DealMaker, and Mark Hubbard, Managing Partner of Renew Venture Capital, today's guests, work collaboratively to enhance access to capital for underestimated entrepreneurs, bringing the best of crowdfunding and venture capital together. They will share insights about their work and their superpowers. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe. Welcome to the Superpowers for Good show. Rebecca, Mark, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation today. I'm so excited to talk to you two. You're just great people.
Thanks for having us, Devin. Excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Well, we're thrilled. Rebecca, you were a sponsor. DealMaker Tech was a sponsor of SuperCrowd 22. I need to thank you for that. Really, I'm grateful. You really made such a huge difference in making that event possible, and it was tremendously successful because of you. So thank you. And you also played an important role in the program as well. So we're thrilled about that.
Well, we're happy to do it. You're doing great things for the community and doing it in a really positive way. So we're more than happy to be a part of it. Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you. And you and Mark are working in an interesting collaboration I need to know more about. I've only scratched the surface of this, but Mark has a venture fund that is doing amazing things, and with a focus on impact and funding diverse entrepreneurs. And you're doing, brokering crowdfunding deals and really changing the game, I think, for a lot of people. How are you collaborating? Rebecca, do you want to take a crack at explaining what you're doing?
Yeah, well, as a technology company, we feel so privileged to have partners like Mark with his deep background and expertise in venture capital and private equity and global experience, and him really understanding the mission and vision of a lot of different founders that need to be supported is really exciting to us. And in terms of the growth for the space, like for us as the rails of pre-IPO capital raising, a big part of what we see on our system is equity crowdfunding. And we are seeing that type of capital raising funding female and minority founders to the tune of 15 to 30% higher rate than more traditional forms of finance. And folks like Mark being in the space really pushing the envelope and making a difference in those numbers. We're thrilled to be able to support what he's doing.
Mark, how are you working with her? This is such an interesting merger of crowdfunding and venture capital. How is it working for you?
Sure. Well, I mean, we can talk about the reasons why I think reggae and these crowdfunding kinds of opportunities in the impact world and specifically are such an important development in a little bit. I mean, Renew Venture Capital is dedicated to funding, to supporting, really, right? Like two kinds of founders. One founder is an impact company that wants to be a big company. They want to grow and they want to do really well and exit. But where impact is at the core of what they do, right? So the bigger they get, the more impact there is. Those founders can be any kind of person at all. That can be a white guy. That's fine. We also fund women and historically excluded founders. And those companies can be really any kind of non-destructive company because, I mean, the numbers in venture capital. There's impact in trying to open up the asset class to women and historically excluded founders. And so when you look across that group, that's also a group that's incredibly well suited for crowdfunding. And so then for us, that's both committed to financial return and, kinds of justice kinds of work. For us, then we have to go find out who has the best. I mean, we don't have that tech. We don't have that platform. We don't have the infrastructure to do that kind of work. And it just happened to align that, the best tech happens to be a DealMaker. DealMaker happens to be founded by a brilliant securities attorney woman. It all couldn't be a better fit for us to be able to work together on this particular effort.
Yeah. Well, I really love the way, Mark, that I see you walking the talk. I was looking at your website and looking at the general partner suite, and it's 4 women, kind of a rainbow of colors, if you'll forgive me. And it's really kind of just authentic is the way
Ah,
that your commitment to this feels. And I love that you highlighted that partnering with Rebecca and DealMaker is strategic in that way too, right? That you're looking through a lens that identifies opportunities to literally walk this talk. Rebecca, some of that must be important to you. How has that become? How has your partnership with Renew allowed you to do things that you couldn't do otherwise?
Well, for me, this kind of impact on the world has always been a very personal part of the why. Why do I do what I do? Why do I, get out of bed in the morning? And I always say, as once you're a woman working, you're dedicated to your career, and then you have kids, you have to feel really strongly about what you're doing to want to spend a lot of time away from your kids. And so I feel very personally fulfilled when we can partner with people like Mark and the work that they're doing in the space. And Devin, I think a lot of the work that you do, some of the sessions we had at Supercrowd, because to me, if I can do what I do and make that kind of positive change in the world for different kinds of founders to get access to capital, and I can see that that's the impact that DealMaker is having on the capital markets, that's incredibly fulfilling for me, and that's incredibly fulfilling for my team. Part of what we set out to do in building the DealMaker technology was really to create the rails for the pre-IPO world. We saw founders struggling with the costs of capital raising and it being a highly manual process. And we wanted to give them a technology that would help them do it better, faster, cheaper. And so to see that, fast forward the 4 years we've been in business and the incredible impact that's had on the ecosystem, and to really see the numbers and the way that's changing the game, I think for our team, it just contributes to the why we do what we do, to create one global capital market that's accessible by everybody.
Yeah. Mark, can you give us an example of a transaction that you have done in partnership with DealMaker?
Sure. Well, we're about to launch the very first one,
Okay.
Which will happen in the next, I don't know, probably a couple of weeks, waiting on the final piece of regulatory. So I probably shouldn't give you a name, but it's a good example. I mean, for founders, there's really two reasons in my mind why you do a Reg A like this, why you do any kind of crowdfunding, but particularly a Reg A. It's not for, crowdfunding has been great. It's a great part of the marketplace, sort of that 5 million and below round. But when you have a company that wants to be sort of market dominant, there's comes a stage where you've been around a while and you don't really need, the $5 million is a lot of money, but you need growth capital, right? You need institutional level capital to be able to become a true market leader. And that's really difficult to do. And so one option is to go to private equity, right? Or to growth venture. And only a small percentage of companies fit that anyway. But the other now, right, is an opportunity for something like this, where you can raise up to $75 million. And it's a real money, real institutional level money. But on top of that, and you'll see when this one comes out, it'll be a really good example of this. These founders can now take, customers and communities, and think about our founders. Our founders are social impact companies, women, historically excluded founders. They're some of the best community builders in the world, right? And now they can take those communities and those customers and transform them from their current state, right, into owners and advocates. And so not only do you get the capital you need, right, for expansion, you also have now developed this whole new class of folks that are going to drive sales. So you really you affect all levels of finance in the company, and there are almost the very few opportunities to do that in a capital stack, and that's incredibly exciting. On top of the fact that you're also choosing to affect the financial lives of people, of like real people that care about what you're doing, right? You're choosing to affect their financial lives and perform for them, right, in a way that was never you weren't ever able to bring people around a mission like that before.
Yeah, like we have multiple clients who have told me, a robotics company, trucking parts company, who have told me the major contracts that they got through investors they brought in through their crowdfunding Reg A campaigns. That's pivotal change for the company. It's always been a huge benefit for me. My investor base, I did, small checks from a large number of people, and they've been of phenomenal supporters, the best supporters and champions that I could have. Whatever I need, I can go out to them. I can rely on them, whether it's making an introduction, bouncing something off them. The benefits of that, having all of those partners really invested in your story, is really, we're trying to really tell that story so that founders can understand this is a viable path to capital, and it has a lot of different benefits that you may not see with other types of capital.
It really does. And it's interesting that you're both seeing this synergy between revenue development and the investor base, right? That you get people who may not be your traditional private equity investors who may throw in $1,000 or $2,000 into a deal, but now they're committed in a way they never would have been absent Reg A or Reg CF. And they may have very strategic relationships, even though they weren't typically part of a capital stack. It's interesting that you're both seeing that. As you think about how you'll work together, what does the operation look like? I hate to ask you to pull back the kimono so far, but I'm trying to understand how the capital will move, what the operational steps are, so that other people can model that. And you probably don't want to share it so people can model it, but I want to see good replicated. What can you share with us?
I'll take that. I mean, the approach for this particular piece, and look, you keep in mind, right? DealMaker does everything, right? They do everything, all kinds of companies, all kinds of situations. We just mentioned a robotics company, right? Where there's, big social mission on that front. So like, they have lots of options. We came to DealMaker and said, this is a market that we care about deeply, that we fund, that we want to see more success in, that we want to see more activity in. Can we work together? Because I don't have any of the really right expertise or compliance infrastructure or technology infrastructure to go after this particular part of the market together. And so you'll see some stuff popping up soon, some joint websites. We're sort of calling them at Renew VC, we're calling them purpose rounds. So right, instead of doing a private equity round, you can do a purpose round. And so you'll see some of that pop up. And then the truth is, if you want to pull the kimono back when it comes to the impact side and sort of the capital stack financing structure piece, right? Like that's very much us. And when it comes to everything that requires, actual know-how, that's all going to be DealMaker, because they're the experts in the business.
Yeah, I think for us, it's key to get these important deals like this funded, right? And that happens through a variety of different structural ways, from getting the offerings cleared to getting them up and live to getting their conversion ratios up, and getting the messaging out there. So there's a bunch of different components to doing a retail offering, and we want to make sure that what happens with Mark's deals is the best of the best.
I want to drill down just a little more on what you're bringing to the table, Rebecca, because I think it's really important. And maybe I misunderstand, and please forgive me if I do, but I think you're bringing more than just a portal where people can bring their offering and their own investor network. I think you're bringing more than that. Tell us about what you're bringing in addition to a legally compliant platform where money can be raised legally.
Yeah, I think the technology always sits at the core of it, and a lot of the knowledge and processes are built into the technology, and we're constantly upgrading that so that folks like Renew can continue to do these offerings better, faster, cheaper, and companies can get funded. better, faster, cheaper. But I think at its core, there's a bunch of different segments, right? You've got to think about the way that the offering is structured, and that's what Mark's team is doing. And then we'll help them with everything to, they're going to have their legal team prepare offering documents. They might use our broker dealer to help sign off and get those offering documents cleared. We set up a technology portal to help them go live. Our marketing team might help them craft their messaging, or maybe they want to complement our marketing team with other marketing teams, or craft their own marketing messaging to make sure that the story that goes out to investors is really resonates with them and they can understand the message very quickly. Because we all know when you're clicking through things online, messaging has to be very crisp and it has to hit home very quickly. And I think that's what's so exciting about impact investing. And what Mark's doing is a lot of the trends that we're seeing is people want, the age demographics are skewing younger, and those folks really want to feel good about the stories that they're investing in so that they can champion and do what we were talking about and go out to their own network and say, here's the product that's socially conscious. I'm a shareholder in this company. You guys should use this socially conscious soap that I like to buy because I'm a shareholder in it. And they can really champion that message and create that network effect so that these kinds of companies can become even more successful through their investor base. And so then beyond the offering, there's a huge component now to engaging that community that you've built. And Mark can help his companies with engagement of their community and create that nice flywheel with continual video messaging. Hey, here's the factory that we just built with your money. This is how we did it. And continue to keep people involved in their cause and really championing that cause. And so we're developing best practices around all of those things that we're doing with a lot of our clients, like Mark, who are really pushing the boundaries on this. And then this space can just continue to evolve and become better, faster, cheaper.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I really appreciate you guys sharing a little bit of the private parts here and helping to illustrate what you're doing so clearly. So thank you. As you guys have both accomplished a lot. Really, truly amazing things. There just aren't words, right? For the level of success you're achieving, the great things you're doing. I'm not worthy to be in the room with you guys, and I'm grateful for what you're doing. Rebecca, you're too young to know the reference to not being worthy, but I think Mark remembers.
The Nick at Night, I think probably I watched.
But anyway, sure. Sorry. Rebecca, what is your superpower?
It's an interesting question. I think if I was going to put it in a word, it would be storm. So the ability to create the storm and then the ability to have calm once the storm is brewing all around you.
Interesting. I am looking forward to digging into that more. But Mark, what is your superpower?
Well, that's not fair. That was all poetic. I got to follow poetry. My superpower, gosh. My father was a theater professor. And so I grew up sort of deeply immersed in the theater. And probably my favorite thing about the theater is that it's one big empathy machine, right? That's really what it functions as. And so if I had to pull one that I would like to say is mine, and certainly would be, let's say, the firm's, it would be empathy, because quite frankly, the only way that we're going to have any success and meet any needs, right, is if we have radical empathy with the people that we're caring for. The only way you build a tech product, Rebecca can attest to that, right? Radical empathy with your users is the only way you build a tech platform that people want to use and would be delighted for. And doubling back to some of these reasons, it was really partly my empathy for investors that made me want to do this effort. I mean, certainly it's a justice issue to allow, non-accredited investors to have access to the asset class. That's great. But Devin, we're in the midst of this global paradigm shift where people are finally really, really wanting to align what they say they believe about the world with what their money makes possible, right? And you can do that with an ETF, and you can do that with ESG, and you can do that in all kinds of sort of large global national public stock ways, and they're messy. And there's no better way to do that on a direct one-to-one basis than to be able to invest in a company that's doing something aligned with your values. Before this, that wasn't possible. And so that, empathy for investors, whether or not I can find a way to make money off of it or not, probably not most of the time, is valuable to me because I care about what they want to be able to have happen in their lives and in the world. And this, allows that on a level that's, not really been possible before.
Yeah. Fascinating. We're going to come back. We'll talk more about empathy, but I want to visit with Rebecca about the storm. Tell us a little bit about, and maybe you could share an example, a story of when you used this superpower to create a storm, to create something successful, something you're proud of having done, maybe something with some impact, and how this storm superpower entered into this success.
Yeah, I think, Devin, the whole journey of building DealMaker or anything that I do when I'm getting a different business unit off the ground or solving a problem is a lot of the time about momentum, right? It's slow at first, and sometimes it feels like you're moving backwards, but you're always trying to push the boulder up the hill. And that's, harnessing the energy around you and really pushing all to create that storm and make a bunch of different things happen at the same time. And I'm always trying to make all those things happen really, really fast. And so when you're making a lot of things happening, things are inevitably breaking or problems are arising that you have to solve. And to me, as that's startup life, right? That's being a founder, is you're always putting out fires and you're running and you're trying to create momentum. And being able to have a calm headspace throughout that and actually enjoy that journey is, I think, what gives me the ability to really love what I do and have the desire to create more disruption. Because even when things are breaking and falling down, and of the 10 things I'm pushing, 5 of them are not working, being able to not have that stress you out and just be able to make a call and move forward. I think that's what I aspire to, and every founder aspires to, so that they can make their business a success.
Fascinating. Mark, as you think about empathy, let's ask you kind of the same question. Can you think of a time when you used empathy to accomplish something that you're proud of having accomplished, maybe with some positive impact, and explain how the empathy factored into that?
Yeah, I mean, this firm is an exercise in empathy. Look, so Renew was started by me and Paul Armstrong, and we were college roommates, 10 years ago when we were in college. And and don't chuckle. And Paul's the best product person I know in the whole world. So the best UX, UI, branding, but we're 2 middle-aged white guys, with facial hair and black glasses. And the idea that the 2 of us should run an impact fund, right? That's focused both on impact companies and women founders and historically excluded founders is, we would do fine, but that's a little silly. And it is an exercise in empathy to go from that, where frankly, that dynamic is the best, that dynamic is the best economic arrangement for Paul and I. But to go from that to a world where we're now, as a firm, we're 80% women and we're white and black and brown and Asian and immigrant. And, all of that is an exercise in empathizing with people who should be in the business and can't, with people who should find funding and connect to investors but can't, to investors that want to do amazing things in the world, but don't have that opportunity. That's all an exercise in empathy.
Yeah, empathy is a great one.
Rebecca, as you think about this ability to create a storm and build something from it, how would you coach other people to develop that skill, that ability, even if they can't bring it to your level? What could they do to get part of the way, at least?
That's a great question. I think self-awareness and personal growth is really how you get there. You have to constantly be challenging yourself. That's why we have as one of our company values, self-learning is a big part of what we do. Empathy really folds into it. I think Mark's is a really good one because we try to be really transparent, no politics type of organization, and learning and growing together. And to do that, you need to have empathy for the teammates around you, because you need to give them feedback and you need to take their feedback, and you have to learn and grow.
Yeah, that's great feedback. And Mark, how would you coach people to develop empathy? I mean, books are written in piles about this, but it's hard. Yeah, it's hard. I recently read, an author who is like famous for her insights on empathy. And I found the book Hollow. Yeah. It's really hard, I think, to learn empathy. How would you coach someone?
Yeah, genuine empathy? So that easy setup. Yeah. And by the way, to what you just said, empathy is not weakness. Like I'm not soft. It doesn't, those aren't connected in any way. They don't. And in fact, empathy is, like you just said, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. Sometimes it's painful, like intentional empathy, right? Sometimes empathy in some ways is often kind of like putting your happiness into the happiness of somebody else, right? So that what makes them happy makes you happy. But it has to be real. It can't be, some fake version of that. That'll just make you resent them. And that's hard. Like that's a really difficult thing to make happen. I don't know what to tell you. I would say, going back to what I think drove a lot of it in me. For a lot of people, there's faith systems that help them, do that. For me, that's certainly the case. But in addition to that, consume art, I think is not a bad thing. Television shows that aren't destructive, right? And movies and about people that are different than you, and from their point of view, and really try to enter into those stories. And I know that's been hugely affecting for me over the years. I've realized all kinds of things about myself, sort of belief systems or justifications I'd made that, within the course of an hour and a half movie, I just completely got torn apart. And so that's a way, but like you said, it requires work. We don't always like to do work, but I think it requires work.
Yeah, that really resonates with me in a way that I had never thought about in terms of empathy. But I think about some of the early empathy building that I did in effect was, watching Spike Lee films back in the 90s, right? When, Utah boy, white Utah kid that, I had met like 3 black people in my life when I was 25. I learned a lot just from art. Great point. And I had never really thought about it in quite those terms. Well, listen, guys, I really appreciate your time and the amazing work that you're doing, and that you would take the time for this discussion today. I truly appreciate it. Before we go, let me ask you each, maybe Rebecca, you could go first. Tell people how they can learn more about DealMaker and how they can connect with you more personally, whether that's social media or whatever you want to share, but coach people on how to learn more.
Yeah, you can reach out to us, find out a bit more about what we do at info@dealmaker.tech, or website is dealmaker.tech. You can grab me on LinkedIn or Twitter, or hopefully soon I'll be setting up a public Instagram as well, so you can get a little bit more day in the life of me as a CEO and all the trials and tribulations and fun times we have building a company.
Fantastic. What about you, Mark? How can people learn more about Renew? I mean, I'm sure that people want to invest in your fund. People want to get money from your fund. There might be more of those.
No, oddly enough, we're switched the other direction.
And people want they want to subscribe to wherever your sense of humor is on display. So tell us about all that.
Sure. So the firm is Renew Venture Capital. It's Renew VC across almost all of the platforms. That's how you can find us, renewvc.com. Yeah, I'm Mark Hubbard. MW Hubby is my thing, MWHUBBY. When Paul and I were in college, I had a radio show where I would read Dr. Seuss books that we called Nap Time with Hubby. And therefore that became my lifelong hook. And so, you can find me on LinkedIn or maybe when I'm hating myself on Twitter. Yeah, I'm available usually by MW Hubby.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both. Again, I'm so grateful for your willingness to take some time for this conversation, and grateful for all the great work you're doing. And I'm excited about this new partnership you've got, and thrilled to look forward to following that in the coming months. So thank you again, and we wish you every success in all that great work.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
All righty. Let's do some good.
Thank you for tuning in to the Superpowers for Good show. Twice each week, we host changemakers who share their impact, insights, and superpowers. Don't miss another episode. Subscribe today at superpowersforgood.com. That's superpowers good.com. Be super empowered. Get your copy of the book, Superpowers for Good, as an ebook, audiobook, paperback, or hardcover edition via your favorite online retailer. Interested in having me speak to your company, organization, or association? Visit devinthorpe.com. Then let's talk. Now, keep using your superpowers for good. Together, we can reverse climate change, improve global health, and eradicate poverty.